Hello. I think we are on live now. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Trying to get the camera set up. Hello. Glad to have everyone on. Glad to have everyone on. Good morning, Sister Sarah. Good morning. North Carolina Jones. Good morning, Selah. Good morning. Good morning, Stacy. Good morning, Tanisha. Pastor Sheila and Kenneth. Christian, good morning. Always glad to have you guys on. Sister Cynthia, good morning. Sister Doe, Deacon Doe, good morning. Minister Bazemore, good morning. Hey, Rue, Mimi, good morning. Sister Phyllis, glad to have you on. Hey, Terrell. Lovable Miss Rita, good morning to you. Pastor Mosley, good morning. Nikki Cole, good morning. Party in the rain, I know that's right. Sister Betty Bugs, good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Pope, good morning. Good morning. Hey, listen, if you get a chance, I just saw a couple of people share. If you don't mind, go ahead and share that we're on today. And thank you in advance for those hearts. Good morning. All aboard, right? We are jumping on this ship, sailing to success. And we love to have you jump on with us, along with your family or friends. Sister McLeese, good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Wait for maybe 5 or 10 more people I see coming on, still coming in. Good morning. Good morning. And it is a good morning. I'm not just saying that. It's a good morning. I don't know what yesterday was like, and I'm not even sure what's going to happen today. I just believe it's a good morning. This is the day the Lord has made. Rejoice. Good morning. Thank you. Thanks for the series. Thank you. Good morning, Sister Cynthia. Hey, let's get in. Let's get into our lessons today. I think we got most of the people who are coming on. Sister Whitaker, good morning. It is raining, a little cold, but, you know, we don't appreciate the sunshine and the warm unless we get it. Good morning. From Christian Compassion, good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Hey, look, let's go. Let's go. We're getting on this ship, and the ship we're on is in Luke 5, and it's similar to the ship that we were on last week because Jesus is recruiting again his disciples. This is another account of that same Matthew 4 text. And up until this point, yesterday, Jesus met a crowd. He started teaching the crowd. But then because of the uniqueness of Simon's struggle, he leaves the crowd and connects with Simon. So remember, yesterday was about being unique. Today I wanna talk a little more in depth. And I'll be honest, I've tried to keep our scopes really simple, plain, easy to understand. Today may be a little more challenging, not hard to understand, but some of you may agree, may disagree. I would love to have your comments, in the chat, or, I posted these on Facebook. Maybe we can start a Facebook post so we can kind of converse about it a little bit more. But today's lesson for us happens after Jesus gets in the boat. Here's what he does. He has to choose between two boats. He chooses Simon's boat. Once he gets into Simon's boat, he then starts teaching. The Bible says he teaches the word of God from the boat. Simon is in the ship with him. Simon, Jesus in the ship, and he is teaching. Then the text says, after all of this teaching, he says, now, Simon, let's go into the deep. Strangely enough, when he gets into the deep water, Jesus doesn't speak anymore. He goes silent. Simon is in the ship, Jesus is in the ship, but Jesus is no longer speaking. At this point, I'd argue that Simon is been put in a place where he has to put in practice what Jesus had already told him instead of waiting or expecting Jesus to send him another word of confirmation. Here's today's lesson. We must all, in order to be successful, learn to trust the training. Jesus teaches us in shallow water, but he trains us in deep water. Look, in shallow water, he gives you all the instructions. He gives you the directions. He gives you the confirmation. He builds up your self-esteem. He gives you some advice. He gives you revelation. Because in the shallow water, if you don't believe him, you can always jump ship, but you can still survive. But what he does after he's done all of the teaching in the shallow water is he then pushes us into deeper water where he doesn't speak again, but instead he wants you to trust what he already said in the training process. Sorry about that. I almost got attacked by a bird. Look, he wants you to trust. He wants you to trust what he already said. And here's the controversial part that I want to share, and I really believe I stand on this. I stand on this like concrete, and that is the sign of a mature Christian is not that he or she is always able to hear from God, not your ability to always get a new word, not your ability to always hear something and say, that was confirmation. That was confirmation. Every sermon, that was confirmation. Everything you see, that was confirmation. No, I think the sign of a mature believer is when you don't have the confirmation, when you don't get a new word, but you're able to live based on what God has already said. Listen, too often, we attempt to prove our spirituality by letting people know how often we hear God. I don't want to disappoint you, but God doesn't have to keep speaking all the time. I mean, because of how wise he is and how informed he is and how deep his knowledge is, sometimes it takes us a while to fully comprehend what he said the first time. And it will be overwhelming for God to continually preach and speak and teach novels to you over and over and over again every second of the day. Sometimes your spiritual maturity is in believing what he already said. Look, he teaches in the shallow, but in the deep water is where you don't hear his voice. Some of you are there right now. Some of you are at a place where you've been praying, but you don't think God has answered. You've been asking God for direction, for advice, to help make the next decision, and you're trying to figure out why it doesn't seem that you can get a word from the Lord. Might I submit that you're probably in training? You're probably in the place where God is requiring you to trust what he has already said. It's not the first time it's happened. There was this case in John chapter 20, I think verses 29 or 27, 28. I think it's verse 29, where there was a guy who came to Jesus. And here's what Jesus says to him. Jesus says, because you've seen me, you believe. But blessed are those who believe me and have not seen. Listen, I'm not trying to say that you aren't mature. I'm not trying to say that you shouldn't hear from God, because we all need the shallow water teaching moments. But what I've discovered is that to be successful in this life, there are moments you got to trust the training. See, in the training, in the deep water, that's where he actually had to cast a net. He had to do the work. But that's what Jesus told him to do in the shallow water. In the deep water, he had to believe that there were fish underneath the water that he couldn't even see. He had to trust that faith was real. Faith, the substance of things hoped for, and the evidence of things not seen, was really going to work. In the deep water, he had to call his friends and his partners to help him carry the blessing, because it was so much more than he ever thought or could imagine. Because in the deep water is not only where you trust the training, but in the deep water is why you triumph. In the deep water is where you are rewarded. In the deep water is where you get closer to Christ. In the deep water, Simon changes his name to Simon Peter, and he gets closer to Christ, because there's some things that happen in the training process that God doesn't reveal in the teaching process. The training is the lab work that goes with the theory that you've been reading about. Look, I remember being in college and having to take a lot of tests, a lot of exams. And if any of you know my college story, it took me a little while to get out. I got in quick, but it took me a little while. And I would tell you that whole testimony, but I don't have time to. So go get the book. It's in the book. Shameless plug, right? It's in the book. Testimony's in the book. Look, I was taking these tests, and there'll be these moments where I'd be sitting in class. The professor who taught me would be in the class, and I would be struggling to come up with an answer to the quiz, to the test, or to the exam questions. What I couldn't figure out is, how am I sitting in the classroom with the teacher who knows the answers, but she wouldn't give me the answers while I was taking the test? So, trying to be smart at it, I asked, say, hey, I don't know the answer to number 4. And I asked the teacher. She laughed. The class would laugh. But then she said, listen, I'm not going to give you the answer now, because I've already taught you the answer. Now, during the exam is when you got to remember what I've already taught you. Hey, today, trust the training. Trust that what God has taught you, trust that every lesson you've learned, trust that every experience you had was really a setup for you to survive, be successful, and reap while you're in deep water right now. We're going to talk about it a little bit later, but because he went into these deep water, not only is he trained for something greater, but he's also partnered with people who help take him to the next level. I'm not sure what's going to happen today. I'm not sure how long you've been waiting on God to speak. I'm not sure, how delayed your process has been. I'm not sure, how many confirmations you think you need before you write. But what I do know is that your spiritual maturity can be measured not in how often you hear from the Lord, but how often you act out what he's already spoken. Listen, have a great day today. Listen for God, but more importantly, remember what he's already taught you. The Bible says that the Spirit of the Lord will bring back to our remembrance what we've already deposited. And today, I'm trusting that God will bring back to your remembrance some of the great lessons that he's taught you, some of the songs that you've heard sung, some of the dances that you've been ministered to, some of the sermons that you've heard preached, some of the devotionals that you've already had. Those were shallow water teachings that Christ gave. Now, cast off into the deep and watch God fill your nets. Be blessed, and I hope you share this with someone so that together we can all sail to our success. All aboard.